Tales of UFO abduction, psychic power, and other extraordinary claims captivate our imagination, but sometimes the line between science and faith can be dangerously blurred. Michael Shermer is founder of Skeptics Society and Skeptic magazine. His new book, Why People Believe Weird Things, examines the lure of the unknown and challenges the realm of superstition and the supernatural. And we're pleased to have him on this broadcast. Here is the book, and here is the magazine, and there is a tribute to Carl Sagan, who was on the board. What did he do? What was the relationship with Sagan?
He's just the sort of intellectual fountainhead of the whole skeptical movement.
So he had
critical thinker,
no official association?
Oh, yes, he did. Sure, he endorsed the magazine, and a friend and colleague, and you know, great loss to the skeptical community because he transmitted what science was all about better than anyone. What's
the skeptical community?
Well, there is one. There is a movement. It's mostly scientists, intellectually curious folks, scholars. Anybody can join the Skeptics Society. We put on a monthly lecture series at Caltech. Every month is a different subject, whether it's UFOs and alien abductions or psychic power or whatever. Every issue of Skeptic magazine has a different theme. Like this one that is a tribute to Sagan actually has a theme on can history be a science? Dealing with pseudo-history and this sort of thing. We did one after this on the environment. To what extent is science politicized? I mean, you have left-wing scientists arguing for the data to say that there's a greenhouse effect. You have right-wing scientists that say there is no greenhouse effect. What is the public to make of when you have experts on both sides who claim they have the data? Clearly, science is a social process. The data don't just speak for themselves. So one of the things we're interested in skeptics, one of the things that my book is about is belief systems and how they dictate perceptions of the world. If you have a conspiracy theory and you think the Jews are running the world, then every time you read a newspaper article about so-and-so hired at the bank, aha, you see it begins to fit. If that's not your conspiracy theory, if it's the New World Order and Clinton is taking us down this road where the United Nations is going to take over the United States.
Every time you point somebody in the Council on Foreign Relations, they say, aha, proves my point.
Never mind that the UN can't solve a third world skirmish, let alone take over America, but this is minor details to the conspiratorialist who merely has to find the data to fit his theory.
How do you determine when it's reasonable to be skeptical and when it's reasonable to be a true believer?
That's the rub. Where do you go between untrammeled credulity and dogmatic skepticism, neither one of which is healthy? Skeptic is just a name of a magazine. It's really science, and science has a mechanism for helping us find the balance between those two, and the mechanism is asking for evidence, looking to see what the new idea, how it fits into our previous worldviews. Is it consistent? Is it inconsistent? How well does the evidence fit with that theory versus a bunch of other theories? Is there a convergence of the evidence toward one conclusion? So, for example, the creationists ask us for one transitional fossil. Give us one transitional fossil that proves evolution. Problem is, evolution is not proved through one fossil. It's proved through a convergence of different fields to this conclusion. Holocaust deniers, the same thing. You know, show me one testimony from, somebody that says the Holocaust happened. Well, that's not how history is constructed. It's like a puzzle that's put together from various sources.
There are a lot of testimonies that the Holocaust happened. I don't understand what you mean.
Well, what they mean is that prove to me that the Nazis intended to eradicate European Jewry. Find me a letter from Hitler in which he says this. Well, there is no single letter in which he says this. You have to piece it together from speeches and documents and memos and letters and so on. And so what I do in the book when I debunk the Holocaust deniers is show not only why they're wrong point by point, but also how we know anything in history happens. That's the problem with revisionist history, is that sometimes it goes too far where it's driven by ideology rather than evidence.
Why is it that these things have such appeal?
Well, that's the big question. The last chapter of my book is why do people believe weird things? I run through a number of them. Hope springs eternal for the future. For whatever reason, humans have a large enough brain to be able to project ourselves into a different future. The grass is always greener on the other side. Somehow what we have here is not good enough, and we can have it better somewhere else. This is the wellspring of cults, of all religions, of course, is a hope for a better tomorrow, a promise for a better future in eternity. And I think there's a human need for that.
A human need for believing that there's some...
Yeah, something higher, some spiritual, other kind of world other than the physical here and now.
Well, but all religions believe that, don't they?
Absolutely, right.
So therefore, are you skeptical about all religions? Because it's not scientifically based.
I'm skeptical in this sense, that when you ask the question, is the Bible true or false, this is, to me, the wrong question to ask. It's not a book of science and history. It's a book of literature. It's a book of morals and moral homilies. It's one of the great works of Western literature, which is what drives me nuts when books like the Bible Code come out and they say, look, we can prove through science that this is the one true right code of text dictated by God and so on. Baloney, come on. My answer to this is, oh, ye of little faith. I mean, the purpose of religion is faith, not to be proven by science.
Now, do you consider yourself a skeptic? I mean, agnostic?
Agnostic, right.
Yeah.
The problem with, to me, the problem with the atheist, particularly the militant atheist, is, A, you can't prove there is no God. So you can't make the statement, I believe there is no God. How can you prove that? You could say, I have no belief in a God, but that usually entails other things like anti-religion, anti-Christianity, anti-Semitism, and so on, which I steer away from. To me, religion is a fascinating field of study. It's the anthropology of religion, the sociology of religion. Why do people believe in God? These are, to me, fascinating, legitimate questions.
Which one of these drives you nuts? I mean, which one is the most?
Of all the weird things?
Yeah.
I think the things that do bother me the most are the attempts to use science to prove things that are inherently unprovable, like God and religion and those sort of things. Frank Tipler's attempts to use cosmology and physics to prove the design of the universe by God, this sort of thing. The Bible Code, that whatnot. On the other side, on the sort of irritating side, is the psychic hotlines and the people that are clearly duping the public. These psychic hotlines is just a total scam, and people buy into it. It's $3.95 a minute. It's not poor man's therapy. The goal is to keep the people on the line 30 minutes. If you keep them on the line too long, they don't pay their phone bills. If too short, you don't turn a big enough profit. Psychic gets 60 cents a minute out of the $3.95. They're just doing a cold reading technique. People call for love, health, money, career questions, and you just start in on the line, down the line. Just, I sense you're thinking about a career change. You're in a relationship right now, and one of you is more committed than the other one, or you're experiencing financial tensions. And the people will give you the feedback you need. Oh, that's right. Boy, how did you know? And then they'll tell you stories. And then you just spin a story around that, and you've got 30, 40 minutes.
How about near-death experiences?
These are often portrayed as empirical evidence that there is an afterworld. They're not, but they are one of the great unsolved mysteries. We have some idea of what's going on, the floating out of the body, the passing through the tunnel, the spiraling effect, the light, and so on. All these can be reproduced with hallucinogenic drugs. And the fact that we can reproduce them artificially with drugs must mean there's some mechanical mechanism in the brain for those phenomena to occur. Now, what happens during the near-death experience, nobody knows. Maybe the shock of an accident, a heart attack, the sudden loss of oxygen triggers the release of these neurotransmitter substances, experiencing the hallucination.
I have a friend,
who knows?
A French journalist who said to me in Paris not long ago, he's writing about this now, and he believes in it. He just believes that he had a near-death experience.
I believe him.
And I believe too. I do too. This is not something life. But whatever he had was not a look into what life is.
Yeah, I never deny people's experiences. Right. They say, well, I was abducted by aliens. Okay, I believe that you were abducted by aliens, right. but did it happen here or out there? That's the question. And we have to ask, what's the evidence for it happening somewhere other than the mind?
Stephen Jay Gould wrote the foreword to this. A skeptic?
He's a skeptic. He's a friend. He's one of the great minds of our century. A real humanist in the sense of transcending science to culture. And he's a skeptic because he doesn't like people being duped on one side, and he doesn't like the militant atheists who are hostile toward anything that isn't pure, progressive, reductionistic science. That gets dogmatic too. And
is this phenomenon of believing in all these kinds of things, from UFOs to religious experiences, growing in the press of a modern world? And
it is. All the statistics and polls show that it's growing. In the big scale of things, say the last 500 years, the downfall of the universal church, since the 60s, the rise of independent organizations, cults, groups, and whatnot. I think also the rejection in the 60s of authority starts with government, but science is a form of authority in our culture. It's the dominant cultural component we have. It's the reason for pseudoscience. It's because science is so important, there's a temptation. Faith isn't enough. I need to prove that my faith is right. That's what leads to things like the Bible Code. And I think that's a spin-off of the 60s of rejection of traditional authority. So you'll often hear in New Age lectures and books and whatnot this sort of anti-science undertone that, you know, those scientists, they think they know everything, and you know they don't. Or science can't answer everything, therefore there must be something else. And so in a way I can't blame them sometimes, because science sounds arrogant at times. And we probably need to keep some of that in checks and balances. But that's one of the driving forces of it.
Why People Believe Weird Things by Michael Shermer of the magazine is also called Skeptic. This one, a tribute to Carl Sagan. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.